He's our financial guru, and he is here every month to visit us, except July and December.
That's correct.
Yeah, and he today is going to teach children how to manage money. He's done many, many things that have helped us manage our money, so now we're going to kind of focus in on our younger population.
Okay. So I understand this will be available to you, so we're going to try to hit the highlights today. How many in here feel like your parents ever sat down with you and really taught you how to manage money?
They tried.
They tried. Okay, how many failed at listening? So, you know, we teach our children the most complicated language, which is English, and how do we do it?
We use it.
What's that?
We use it.
We use it. So they're able to use verbs, adverbs, nouns, pronouns, adjectives before they ever get to the first grade, right? Maybe not always in sequence or using the right words. And they learn by our modeling for them. The most important lessons you will teach your children will be taught by how you live, by what you do. So we're going to cover some of these topics today, and I'm just going to gloss over the top of it. I've got a lot more information than we'll cover in here today, but you do have this available to you to use. Now, the number one cause of family friction is what? Money. It is the number one cause. Counselors for decades have been telling us we get stressed, we get frustrated, we worry about money. Some of the fears, most of the fears are realistic. Some of the fears are unrealistic. But have you ever been, don't raise your hand, but have you ever been in a situation where you woke up in the middle of the night or early in the morning and could not go back to sleep because you were worrying? Yeah, we all have. Every single one of us. And what we want to do is, because we love our children, to help them make good decisions so they're not put in that situation. Sometimes there are things that you can't do anything about. I remember when our oldest son was 5 years old, he went into the hospital to have surgery. As they were sedating him, they came to us and said, we cannot operate on him because your insurance company has filed for bankruptcy. That's the first I'd heard about it. But we convinced him to have the surgery, and guess what I did for the next 11 years? Pay a hospital that I didn't have money for because the insurance company had filed for bankruptcy. So what we want to do is teach our children how to manage money, not just spend money, and we'll do that by sitting down and talking with them. This is going to take some time. So let's see if we can kind of get ages of children here. Let's talk about your children. How many have children from 0 to 4? Okay. How many have from 5 to 8? Okay. How many have 8 to 16? All right. All right, so we're going to talk about how you can go about really teaching your children how to manage money in this process. Maybe you were never taught. And maybe you were taught to save but never taught to invest. There's a big difference between those two. And maybe you were never taught how to manage day-to-day checks, and it's more than simply budgeting. Budgeting is one step that's very important. And then what should you teach your children? And the good thing is this can be fun for children, especially if you start early. And we'll talk about some of the techniques we've used and toss in some suggestions that you can use that are really practical. So what we do is we teach our children English language, how to treat other people, how we want to be treated, how we want to act by the way we act. Would you agree with that? By our actions, we teach them every single day. That is also the process that's most successful in teaching them to manage money. There's some things we do that we don't explain that our children misinterpret. For example, if you go to an ATM machine, put in your card, and get out $100, what does that child think if they're young?
Thinking it's full money.
Yeah, hey, the bank's giving us money, right? So, no problem. Just stick another card in and get more money. They're concrete thinkers, and they have not learned to be real sophisticated. So a trip to a bank, a store, an ATM machine, for example, can be the perfect opening for talking about your children about banking. Does that make sense? That the bank is only doing what for you? They're not giving you money. What are they doing? They're storing money for you. They're holding it so you don't have to carry all this cash around. Does that make sense? And see how they can misinterpret that. Even at a very young age, saying, these are our dollars that we put in here like you put hay in a barn. We put it all in there and we take it out a little bit at a time. And so a child's imagination is incredible, incredibly strong. They can understand concepts if we share it with them. Even very simple but also profound concepts. So what I've done is I've broken this down into various ages. So some of these will apply to your children, some will not. But ages 2 through 3. Is it amazing what a 2 to 3-year-old child can do? Our granddaughter's 2.5. She can FaceTime me. She picked up Jess's phone the other day and FaceTimed me. Is that not amazing? She can find Super Y. And what's the tiger? Not Tony the tiger, but Daniel the tiger. She can find Daniel the tiger. She can do all these things, find pictures at 2.5. So they're very competent. They know what they can do. And so it is realistic that we can teach them certain steps along the way to manage their money. And we're going to share with you some ways of doing that. Okay, so one way, which I have listed here at the very bottom, is to start, first of all, up here, teaching them about money. So when I was very young, I had 2 older sisters. And now this is really going to date me. And our parents would give us a quarter to go to the store and get candy. 2 older sisters, 1 younger brother. They would get the coins, the quarter changed into 2 dimes and a nickel, and they would hand it out to me and say, Eddie, you get to pick first. What do you think I picked every single time? Why? Because it was bigger. They, you know, I didn't know this until like last year. They were cheating me all this time. But the reality is they don't understand the concept or the value of money unless what? We teach them. So at a very early age, we can take a small child and say, you know, here's a penny, here's a nickel, here's a dime, here's a quarter, here's a dollar bill, here's a $5 bill, and start talking about the value of money, that it's currency. And so what you might do is you might set up an imaginary shop in your living room. Kids love this. I've seen this done, where you actually act like you're a grocery store and they go shopping and they give you Monopoly money and you count it out, you price everything, you help them, they help you price Cheerios or whatever it might be. You put a price on it, then you give them a certain amount of money, maybe you give them a $5 bill from Monopoly, and then they go through the register and you charge them, you count out the money, and then the next thing, you go shopping, they work the register, they count out money to you. Does that make sense? You make it a game. Kids are just great at these games. And then you pretend to shop, and in doing so, teaching them the value of money, which they can do at 2 and 3, can't they? They're really capable. At ages 4 and 5, before heading to the supermarket, you might ask a preschool child to help you clip coupons. How many use coupons? Okay. Why do we use coupons?
To save.
Pardon me?
To save money.
To save money. Do your children at 4 and 5 know that? Would it be wise to use coupons, maybe even if you really don't use coupons? To teach what lesson? How to save money. Starting teaching them that process. So before you go to the supermarket, you ask the preschool child to help you clip out some coupons or find some coupons. You explain how a coupon works. And then, as you're going through the store, you might give them the coupon and say, help me find, now you might have to help them do this, but help me find the Cheerios. Because we have a coupon, and then you take the Cheerios box down, and what do you see on the Cheerio box? The price that's normally charged, and then you show them the coupon. By using this coupon, this is, how much is a box of Cheerios? Anybody know?
$3.
How much?
3 or 4.
Let's say $3, and the coupon is worth 50 cents. And so instead of paying $3, we're only going to have to pay $2.50 because of this coupon. We are saving money. So before you go to the store, you count out how much money you have with that child. Maybe it's $100. And you say, now, instead of us taking $3 of that $100, we only take $2.50. We've saved 50 cents. And so as you go through shopping, showing the coupons, you show them what you would have spent and what you did spend. Does that make sense before I go any further? Okay. So as you walk through the store and they start helping you, it becomes what for them? A game. And they learn to enjoy what? Saving money. Most of us have never been taught the enjoyment of saving money. We have been taught the joy of spending money. Right? Okay? So that's ages 4 and 5, but let's continue with that. And most preschool would rather play imaginary restaurant than go out for dinner, if you make a game out of it. And so I suggest some ways of doing that. And even having them, I remember with our boys, we played this game, and they fixed a pumpkin pie. Wow. They didn't use crust. They just took the can, poured it in the pan. We let them do it. They stuck it in the oven. And we thought we could hide it, because Cheryl was making one too. But guess what one we got to eat? Yeah, it wasn't very good. But then we start teaching them about even the concept of how business works. That we take food. A restaurant takes food. They get it from somewhere like a grocery store. They prepare meals. And they charge us to eat the food they prepared. Now there's a really important lesson I'm going to circle back to in just a minute. But that's a really important concept. You can eat at home or you can eat out. Do both of them cost you? Which one costs the most?
Out.
If you're trying to save money, which is the least expensive way of eating? And not only nutritional, maybe. Okay? So here's the most important lesson we teach our children about saving money. So this is what Cheryl and I did. We had 3 kids. And they got a certain amount of money every single week for being part of the Thompson family. No chores assigned to it. They just got a certain amount of money. And a certain amount of that money had to go to charity every week, because we wanted to teach them the value of helping others, about being philanthropic. They also had to save a certain amount of money every week to invest. The rest of the money they can spend any way they wanted to. But here's the lesson. For example, I can change the oil in my car. I worked as a mechanic through graduate school. But do I have to do it? It has to be done, but do I have to do it? Or can I pay someone to do it? Which is less expensive, if I do it or if I pay someone to do it? If I do it, right? But I can choose not to do something, but I can pay for it. But here's what we taught our children. Every morning, before you leave for school, you have to make your bed. The bed has to be made. Now, you don't have to do it. You can pay your little brother to do it. He charges 50 cents to make your bed. Or your mom can do it. She charges $2. Dad is expensive. I'm $5. Now, here's what happened. How eager was the younger brother to make the older brother's bed? And how did the younger brother like it the day when the money came out every week, and the big brother, who got a certain amount of money because he's part of the Thompson family, had to dish out $2 or $3 to his younger brother who made his bed? See where we're going with it? An important lesson. You don't have to do everything, but if you choose not to do something that has to be done, you've got to pay someone to do it. Now, I want to build on this in a few minutes, but before I go any further, does this make sense? And you don't have to. We got done. Cheryl and I did some of the cooking. Cheryl did more of it than I did. But at the end, we all had to get up and clean the table, wash the dishes. You didn't have to. But if you didn't, someone had to do it, and you had to pay your part of washing the dishes. We kept a list on the refrigerator. Does that make sense? So what vital lesson are we teaching in that process? Have any idea?
It's cheaper to do it yourself.
cheaper to do it yourself and to think about costs. Think about your choices can be expensive, or they can save you money. Before I go any further, does that make sense? At what age do you think you can start teaching that?
4.
Who said that?
Me.
I agree. You can start very early on. And I tell you, if you got younger siblings and you got a lazy older one, this works. I tell you, Barrett loved payday because Robbie would stay in bed as long as he could, and sometimes he would make his bed, sometimes he wouldn't, and Barrett would stand at the door waiting to do it. Couldn't wait. He loved his older brother paying him because it was a game to him. But guess what they do now? Now they're 37 and 40. Guess what they do before they leave the house?
Make bed.
Guess what they do before they go downstairs? Make their bed. Important discipline. All right. So to continue, if you have an obligation to do something but you do not want to do it, you'll end up paying someone to do it for you. Correct? I don't have to eat at home. I can eat out, but I have to pay someone to do that, and it's more expensive than buying my groceries and doing it myself. True? I will pay a certain amount of money for shoes. I would tell our sons, and I don't remember what the shoes cost in those days, but I'll pay $50 for a pair of shoes. If you want these name brand Nike shoes, I'll pay $50, you pay the difference, but it comes out of your money. If you want certain jeans, I buy clothes still on sale. I look for sales. I still buy clothes on sales. If they choose not to, they don't have to. But I'm only going to pay a certain amount for those shoes. Now, you got to wait until they're a little bit older. But does that make sense? So what lesson are we teaching there? To buy what? To buy value. And we'll get back to that in a second. So I would come up with what I thought was a fair amount for shoes, or actually Cheryl did, for shoes and things. And then that's what we would tell our kids when they were 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old. That if you want something more expensive, if you want to be like everybody else, I'm not willing to pay for you to be like everybody else. If you want to pay the difference, that's fine. Does that make sense? You see why it works? So what other lesson are we teaching by doing that?
If you really want something, you will say
Yes. We're going to come back to that. That's a great comment. Now, if you give them that choice, and they're sitting there looking at a pair of tennis shoes that look like Nikes, but are not Nikes, and they're less than Nikes, and they're going to spend some of their money, which do you think they're more likely to pick? Less expensive, because it's their money. So here's what they would do. They'd be going through the store, and they'd get over to something, they'd pick something up, and they'd go, well, I really want that. Wow, that's a lot of money. Because we didn't buy them all these things. Now, we bought them the necessities, but we wouldn't buy them the extra things. We give them money to do that. Okay? They'll spend their money more carefully than they'll spend yours. True? Have you ever seen somebody taking a child through a grocery store and the child's trying to grab stuff all the time? Why do you think they're doing that? You think they're just trying to be mean? Well, it might be some of them. But why do you think most of them do it?
They don't have a concept.
They don't have a concept? It's not their money. It's your money. Okay. So far, are we all on the same page? Makes sense? What's the big challenge with doing this?
Follow through.
Follow through. This takes effort. It really does. And then ages 6 to 8, as soon as your child receives an allowance, or as we didn't call it an allowance, but just part of being Thompson family, they need to put their money in a place where it can be seen. So I was taught to put money in a gold piggy bank that my parents gave me. The only problem with that is when I put it in there, I never saw it again until I took it out. I never got to see it grow. So what we suggested is that first of all, you can do several things. One, you can buy just a jar, just get a jar and start putting money because they can see it grow over time. Or you can also make a trip to the bank and open up a savings account. And where every week they put a certain amount of money, which we instructed our children, they had to save some of their money. Later, we took another step from simply saving to investing. I worked with a teacher years ago, in Cedar Rapids. So that's been 15 years ago. What do you think a teacher was making 15 years ago? Anybody have an idea?
30,000.
How much? 30,000? And she had taught 30 years. And she was worth about $5 million. And she had never inherited a dime. But her dad taught her at a very, very young age. He gave her, no, I'll back up. He gave her $100 a year until she was 12. And she had to buy stock with that $100. When she turned 12, she had to get a job, and she started investing. By then, she wanted to invest that money. She saw the AT&T stock she was buying grow, split, grow, and she made the comment to me, two things. One is, my nieces and nephews are going to be shocked how rich I am when I die. Second thing is, I'm glad my dad taught me how to invest, not just save. There's a difference, isn't there? So, we want to start making trips to the bank, making an event, open a savings account, encourage them to make regular deposits. As the balance grows, continue to discuss the concept of interest. Now, let's pause. How does a bank make money? Anybody know? Pardon me?
On you taking out loans and your money.
So,
do they invest some of the money?
pardon me?
Do they invest some of the money?
Yeah. So I go into a bank and I put down $11. Okay? And so I give this money to the bank. What does the bank do with that money?
Loaning someone else.
They have what's called overnight lending. So someone borrows this money overnight and pays them some interest. That's a certain amount of money. And then you come in and you say, I need $5. So they give you $5, and what do they give you some of my $5, my $11, right? They take $5 of my $11 and they loan it to you, and what do? You pay interest, right? So you don't pay them back $5, you pay them back what? $50. $5 and interest. So they take some of that interest, and what do they do with that interest? The interest they're charging people who borrow money, what are they doing with it? They're taking some of that money and paying you interest for that $11 deposit. Does that make sense? Okay. Who gets the highest interest rate? They do. The tallest buildings in towns tend to be what? The biggest buildings? Banks. If you go out and buy a car and you buy it over time, who makes the most money? GM or the one who loans you the money? Yeah. So I go out and buy a car, and let's say I pay $15,000 for that car. All right? And over 5 years, how much is that car going to cost me if I have a 5-year note? And I paid 15. 22. At the end of 5 years, what's that car worth? $22,000? That's what I paid for it by the time I paid interest. How much? Okay, let's say it's $10,000. If you came to me and said, you know what, Eddie, let me give you $22,000, and in 5 years I will give you 10, what would you say? No. So when we buy a car, what are we buying? Is it an investment? Okay. So when we buy cars, what should we do?
Buy used.
Buy used, so you don't have the depreciation, right? As soon as you buy a car and go off the parking lot, what happens?
Depreciates.
Value drops immediately. So your investment and your future investment is already worth less. That makes sense? If you buy a used car, you're not taking such a hit. But also buy value. Buy a car you don't have to work on all the time. Sometimes we buy less expensive cars because we think it saves us money. That doesn't work out to be true either. So you got to really be thoughtful and start teaching our children that. Okay? Does that make sense? Okay. Sometimes banks have accounts for children with no fee and no base, where you have to have a certain amount of money. I don't know about the banks here. Anybody know? Yes?
Yeah, well, the one we go to is free, and they have, every time you make a deposit for the kid, they get to grab a handful of coins and add that to the deposit too.
That is awesome. Which bank is that?
Northwest.
That is awesome.
It's called the Treasure Seeker.
Oh, that is awesome. That's smart on their part too. Okay, 6 to 8, so far we all together, make sense what we're doing with this? Other ideas for 6 to 8, use that clear jar as I mentioned earlier, set an example. Little eyes are watching you. If you slap down plastic at Walmart, what do they think?
You know, my 9-year-old, she said when she was younger, she thought it was just a limited amount.
Yeah.
And then I explained the concept of I only have as much as I make or I have in the bank.
So what is a credit card? How does a credit card work?
Kind of like a loan.
It is a loan, right? And they charge you interest for it, for using that card, right? Does that mean you have unlimited amount of money because you can stick plastic in a machine? What does a child think? They don't see cost, do they? They see plastic. What lessons has our generation learned about using plastic?
You can buy whatever you want, it's unlimited.
How many people have credit card debt that they cannot manage? You have any idea what the percent is? It would be shocking. And some of you know that to be true. Our credit card debt is here. So we'll swap credit card debt, go get another credit card, take the debt off that, pay it off, and pay on to another. We just keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it, because no one ever taught us how credit cards work. It is a bane to our society. It is hurting families. I'm going to try to be cool on this. I can't tell you how many people I've talked with over the years that were afraid because of credit card debt. And they're vicious. They want their money. If that's you, do not pass that to your children. Gosh, just don't do it. You just don't do it. And so, when they see you put down plastic at the grocery store or any other, they think automatically that is a magic card that allows you to buy anything you want to buy. They don't see you paying the credit card bill. They're not on the phone when the credit card collection agency is calling you and say, "Where's our money?" They don't see any of that. Just like you didn't see any of that. Now, before you start feeling real guilty about your credit card debt, you were that child years ago. No one taught you, right? End it with you. End it with you. Yes?
I got my first credit card in college, and it was like for a free t-shirt. And my niece, I was like, awesome, but my niece just started college, and she said it's illegal. They can't stand on the campuses anymore and do that. So thank goodness they're not like targeting the college students.
You know what? But that happened to several generations, and we just kept doing it. It's just, you know, one of the things I do, I pay cash. I'll go to the ATM and draw money out, and I pay cash because I know Eddie Thompson is less likely to spend cash than I am that credit card. So, set a healthy example and teach them a great lesson about credit cards. Now, are credit cards bad?
We have a credit card, and we do not pay interest. We always pay it off when we get the bill. But it pays us points, so we get cash.
Yeah.
The benefits out of it. So we've always used it that way.
So, are credit cards evil?
No.
No. Can they be a good tool? Oh, yeah. But you got to know the difference. So what does this require? When you have a credit card, what does it require? There you go. Discipline, responsibility. Is that innate in us? No. Especially if we were taught as a child, stick it in there. You can have whatever you want, just as long as you got that plastic. Oh, if that one doesn't work, let's try this one. So,
if you see it come out of your bank account, you're more likely to stop using it. But if you don't see it, and you're like, it's like unlimited, and then you get that bill at the end of the month, you're more likely to just keep putting things on it.
So let me tell you, this is a generational issue. I know some of you may just be frustrated no end with your credit card debt. But let me share with you something. Do you realize the federal government, for every dollar the federal government spends, it borrows 46 cents? Did you know that? That wasn't true until about 15, 20 years ago. My generation, which grew up on credit, is not fearful as long as they can make the payments to borrow more. But then what happens? Can't borrow anymore. They want their money. And so now my generation is running the country, and we're spending money that we don't have, just like we're doing in our personal lives. Make sense? It's got to end somewhere. We cannot just keep spending money we don't have, either as a government or as an individual or as a family. Just can't do it. It doesn't work. Someone's going to get burned one of these days. Okay. The other thing I would say is show them that stuff costs money. So when they see you going through the grocery store and they're pulling things off the shelf, and you're pulling things off the shelf, and we're not comparing prices, we're just pulling things off the shelf, and then we get up to the line and we stick in our debit card or credit card, what have they just learned? Or at least, what do they just envision? Get whatever you want, just stick that plastic in, no discretion, no analysis, just get it, right? And so, when you look at return on investment for grocery stores, what product makes the most amount of money for them? A hint. It's what's closest to the register. Did you know that? The percent of return on investment, they stick all those candy bars, some soft drinks. You know what it costs to produce a can of Coke? Anybody have an idea what it costs to produce a can of Coke? 7 cents. What do they charge?
$1.80.
So my point is on this is that we've got to teach them stuff costs money. So how do we teach them that? Yes?
With my kids, we try to, every time they put something in the cart, we have to add it up. So in their heads, by the time we get in the trip, they have to kind of give us an amount, and we see what's cheaper.
So if you're buying it, they'll go, Mommy, but I want it. I want it. But what if it's their money they're spending? See the point I'm getting to? So there is an advantage when you go in a grocery store saying, you know, you have some of your money. Did you bring some of your money? Oh, you didn't bring some of your money. Oh, I'm sorry. Next time maybe you'll bring some of your money so you can buy some of these things. Now, there's certain things we're going to buy for our kids, right? But these extras, they need to learn to pay for the extras in this process. Okay, ages 9 through 12. Are they getting a little more mature at 9 through 12, learn a little bit more sophisticated in their thinking, cognitive development is greater? One way to teach your children to compare shopping is the real store price labels with your child. Look at the size and the price. I remember very clearly my mom, when we didn't have any money growing up, and my mom would get a can of corn that was Bush's. Is that Bush's corn? I know it was at least green beans. Bush's green beans, and then the name brand, not the name brand, the company's brand, like Kroger or whatever you have here. You know, the clear black labeled food. And she'd look at the price, look at the size to make sure it was the same. Because sometimes the size is different, not just the price, correct? So I could see my mom's 4'11", looking at these cans, analyzing, well, this is 48 cents, this is 50 cents, but this has a little more corn than this, I'm going to go with this. So where do you think I learned that lesson? So analyzing expenditures, even the small things. Guess what happens if you're analyzing cans of corn when it comes to buying a car? What's going to be different? You're going to start analyzing, getting them to think before they spend their money. Okay. So they look at different things, and then also, as I was mentioning earlier, I would tell our sons, we'll pay $50, for example, for a pair of shoes. If you want just Converse, of course I understand Converse is expensive now. How's that going around full circle? But here's what I'm willing to buy. Here are the shoes I'm willing to buy you. If you want these, you've got to pay the difference, okay? Okay, then, we have found this to be successful. How many have ever had a yard sale? You enjoy them? Boy, I don't. But we had them with our kids' stuff. So our neighbors would get together when our kids would get to a certain age, and they would sell their old stuff they didn't use anymore. A lot of it they bought with their own money. Now, how many remember your kids at Christmas when they were real little playing more with the paper and the box than the toy, right? And how long do they really enjoy those toys? Some for a long time, but what about most of them? What happens to them over time? Yeah, it stacks up. So what we did, we'd have a yard sale. We found that didn't work too well, but we did find cleaning them up and taking them to children in need made a difference if the children went with you. I remember very well going down to the room in the inn and taking toys with our kids where they saw these young families who had nothing for Christmas getting their presents. How do you think that car ride going back felt? Teaching the concept, it's more blessed. What does blessed mean? Happy. More blessed to do what than to receive? Yeah, there's a real truth to that. And then if you do decide to have a yard sale or whatever, trying to decide what to keep and what not to keep, because we have a problem in America with keeping too much. Would you agree with that? Yes. You know, there's whole shows about people hoarding. Wow. Whole shows. So we want to teach them and start getting our children to be in charge of some of these things. Some of the decisions, for example, about how we're going to spend our money is really important. Other ideas for 9 through 12 show opportunity cost. So here's a good example. If you buy this video game, then you won't have the money to buy those pairs of shoes. Teaching them what? What would that teach them? If you buy this video game, you won't have the money to buy those shoes. What are you teaching them?
To choose. Budgeting concept.
To choose what?
A budgeting concept.
What did you say?
To choose.
To choose. Why? What's that?
Consequences.
Consequences of our choice. If they spend their money, you may not have money to buy something else in the future, right? Mm-hmm. And how, do you ever pat your foot in a microwave? Because why? We're in a hurry, right? Well, we are really in a hurry nowadays. How much time do you have just for you? If you've got children, right? You work all day, you go home. What do you do when you get home? Sit around and watch Jerry Springer and eat bonbons? Or what do you get to do when you go home?
Make supper.
Keep working.
Keep working. Until when?
You go to bed.
And then guess what you get to do when you get up?
Same thing.
And do you do only what you need done? Or do you do what your family needs done? You know, you all have a lot on you. And this is more. But it's an investment too. It's an investment too. If you don't teach your children, they're going to follow in your footsteps. And that's scary. That is just so scary. So what we won't call it a commission, but we don't just give allowances. We give money because they're part of the Thompson family. But part of being a Thompson family is we clean the house. We make our beds. We wash dishes. We wash clothes. We sweep. We vacuum. We mow the grass. And you don't have to do any of that. But you're part of the Thompson family. If you choose not to, you've got to pay someone to do it. It's kind of harder to do when there's only one kid unless mom and dad are expensive. Okay? And then I really believe this. I believe there is great value in giving. I grew up with a dad who had Mondays off. Every Monday, he would get in his car, and in those days, we had metal gas cans. You can't get those anymore. And we had a lawnmower where the drive shaft came up from the top, and we would have to take a rope around the top of it and pull it to start. Anybody remember those? Too young, aren't you? Too young to know what that is. My dad would get that 5-gallon can of gas. He'd get that lawnmower. He'd put Eddie in the front seat with him. We would drive around to neighborhoods where people needed their grass mowed. We'd get out of the car. We'd put gas in the lawnmower. We'd start the lawnmower. We would mow the grass of people we didn't know. And they'd come out and say, who are you? Why are you doing this? My dad just says, we want to help you. And they're almost always older people. And I remember one time he took me to Mabel Winterbottom's house. Mabel, at one time, was very proud of her yard. She had a nice little house, very small house, but very nice, very neat, very tidy. And Dad dropped me off and said, you need to mow her grass. And he left. And I choked that lawnmower. I stopped that lawnmower, I don't know how many times. He'd come back, he'd get it started again. And finally we got there and he said, I'll finish it. Just go get in the car. I went and got in the car. He finished it. He came back and he sat down. And he said, Eddie, why are we doing this? And I said, because you told me to. He said, no, no, no. We're doing this because she needs help. We're doing this because she can't do it and would love to have it done. He taught our family to give. It's not always money, is it? Sometimes it is. But you think it was just as rewarding. Now, I didn't actually like him doing that to me. But as I got older, I now look back at Dad and I think, that was an awesome lesson. It's an awesome lesson. So we teach them to give, and sometimes that includes money, but not always. Ages 13 through 15, a child in the early teen years is not too early to learn about the stock market. Maybe they buy Disney stock or something. You can get stock fairly inexpensive nowadays. And then start the process of teaching a child to budget. Now, how many of us in here would say, I have a budget and I really follow it? Very rare. How many of us struggle financially? And I'll tell you, if you're struggling, you're probably not following a budget. And you're probably not following a budget because you're afraid of what it will tell you. That maybe you have less income than you have expenses. So that's another issue we can talk about. The last thing I really want to focus on is we've got to teach our children the difference between wants and needs. Now, how many have daughters? Your daughter may need a dress. Does she need an expensive dress? Your son may need shoes. Does he need expensive shoes? Is there value in teaching them the difference between what they want and what they need? Most of us buy which? What we need or what we want? Right? We might need to buy some meat. Does it mean we have to buy an expensive cut of meat? So does that make sense? Most of us never ask that question when it's time to buy something. We buy based on emotion, right? Anybody ever bought a timeshare or been to a timeshare sale? Well, I love those things. I love to go to timeshare where they try to sell you. I love that. I could just keep saying no. And so the guy said last time we were down in Florida, and he said, so you came for 3 days and never intended to buy a timeshare? And I said, you got it. He said, do you think it's right? I said, you offered? I took it. You think they're still asking me? Yes. They're slow to learn, I guess. I don't know what it is. But we want to help to set a budget. And the budget is based upon what we want or what we need. The problem is a lot of us are still paying for what we wanted. We're behind the 8 ball, right? Okay. How hard is it to get out of that? It's harder to get out of it than it is to get in it. But it takes discipline. We want to, and you know what? If you're struggling as a family, you need to talk to your older children about it. And here's why. You can give them a bank account where they start on their own, but the most important thing you might help your child learn is how to get a job. Now, I know I'm going to sound like a grumpy old man, probably my Mr. Grumpy Pants on occasions in our family, but when our boys turned 12, I bought them a lawnmower. And Barrett would be embarrassed to know this, but when Barrett as a senior in high school, he made $47,000 his senior year in high school, going to school and playing football and playing baseball. He had 5 pickup trucks. He had 12 mowers. He had 16 of his fellow football players working for him. But we started with a lawnmower when he was 12, teaching him to work, just like my dad taught me to work. So what are the greatest lessons we teach our children? What are they? Integrity. See if you agree with this list of 3. Integrity, hard work, and how to manage money. If we teach them integrity, we teach them the value of hard work, and we teach them how to manage money, how well will they do? Probably. Guessing. All things being equal. How many of those lessons are you teaching? You got it. And then the last thing I would say on this part is to teach them the danger of credit cards. They have their role. The problem is that the banks make more money on interest on credit cards. The only thing banks make more money on than credit cards is what? Do you have any idea?
Late fees.
Pardon me?
Late fees.
Late fees or balance checks, right? You know how much they charge for a check that doesn't clear? Yeah, that's good money. Okay, for 16 and up, you can also buy these cards, and they're called different things where it's got a certain cash value that you can put money on. And a lot of college parents are now doing that. But it's still really important to make sure that teen has a budget, even with what they make. And at 16, they need a job, I think. I mean, you may totally disagree with me, but I think there's real value. One of my partners has 4 kids. 3 are now in college, 1's out. They've never had a job. Never. One of them's 21. He's never had a job. What do you think he's like? I hope you're not recording this. Spoiled, spoiled, spoiled. My goodness. I also believe in teaching children, again, as I've already mentioned, to give. And so maybe you pick 5 charities, and they don't have to give a lot, but they need to give. And maybe it's their time, maybe they volunteer. You know, one of the problems we're finding now with charities is that, like hospitals, I don't know how hard it is now to get volunteers, but the volunteer age tends to be what? Yeah, and are there fewer of them or more? Yeah, my generation is not volunteering a whole lot, and not as younger generations. We're too busy to volunteer. Okay, important lessons. We're going to try to summarize these, and then we'll ask what kind of questions you have. Money doesn't grow on trees. Would you agree with that? But children don't know that. They don't know. And then they don't know that you have a budget, if you have a budget. Is there value in teaching your children that you have a budget? Here's what it looks like? Yes. Show them discipline. Show them persistence. Good things come to those who wait. Right? Are you more likely to have money if you hold up on spending and think about it before you spend? Yeah. Money lessons: don't spend it all as soon as it comes in. Just kind of hold on a little bit. Saving to invest is good. Now, not just saving. Saving to invest is good. And then keep track of what you spend. That's a hard lesson, but it's a very important lesson. And then in summary, make sure they have a wish list of priorities, things they want to accomplish. Make the most out of their savings, and teach them to be a little skeptical. How many have ever watched something on TV and you bought it and you were disappointed? I have. And my father-in-law, who lives with us, he's 89 years old. Every day there's a package coming to our house that he watches, that TV show that sells stuff, or TV channel that sells stuff. We got more pots and pans that you can't scratch than you can, that come automatic. It's like he buys these pans that clean themselves automatically. You don't have to do anything to them. I'm not joking, every single day. And he can't figure out why he has no money. I can't figure out why he's living with us if he's got so much money. All right, and then the last, in talking about your children, it's going to take an investment of your time. And be real honest, my parents didn't teach me to do this. And I've struggled because of it. I don't want you to struggle. Okay? You can read the rest of these on your own. Any questions you want to ask? Does this help at all? I hope it does. I mean, I remember being there. I hope, when I sat down to do this, I just thought, I just hope I can help you. I really do. Any questions? Any suggestions that you have? Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.